Joining me now is Justin Rowan, who's covering the Cavaliers for the Chase Down podcast. One of the cool things about the Chase Down is it became associated with the Cavaliers family. Was it last year or the year before? It feels like that's been going
Longer,
strong
man.
now.
Longer.
Wow.
February 2021. This will be our second full season with it. But yeah, it's been surreal. We actually got to go down and host Media Day this year, which was a lot of fun. So continuing to live this surreal dream life of mine.
The best Cavaliers coverage around. There's nobody I could have asked to do this other than Justin or Carter, but like I'll take Justin for this for
Yeah.
the purposes of this one. How are you
I'm
doing,
more
man?
friendly than him. Let's be honest
Yeah,
about what this is.
he's got some Cowboys sadness to get over, I think.
Exactly.
How are you doing, man? What's the most interesting thing going with the Cavs right now?
God, I mean, the most interesting thing, obviously you're trying to see how these additions work out, right? Because the biggest need that they had going into the last offseason was shooting, and Max Strus, we identified pretty early on, was kind of our top target that we wanted to see the Cavs go after and see if they could get him with the mid-level exception. They ended up getting a little bit creative and getting him in a sign and trade, which kept the mid-level exception available to sign George Niang, bringing in Ty Jerome, Damian Jones, all these kind of additions to bolster the depth. But I mean, those are the fun things we're keeping an eye on. And on the more negative side is the bone bruise that Jared Allen's dealing with in his foot. It doesn't sound too serious. JB had clarified that this is a situation where it's kind of been a nagging injury for a while. It's not like he landed on a foot in practice and all of a sudden was in pain. So I think they're playing it safe. I saw that he's in Atlanta tonight for the preseason game, was working out on the exercise bike and not walking around with a limp or anything like that. So I think our fingers are crossed that he'll be available for opening night.
Well, hopefully so, because I mean, this is one of the strongest starting lineups in the league. I recently ranked them, I think, the fourth strongest starting lineup because they have the pedigree that you're looking for with the four stars kind of surrounding that small forward spot, and it looks like Max Strus is going to fit into that. I would assume.
Yeah. I think the assumption right now is that Max Strus is going to start. JB, of course, is not naming one yet, but when asked at media day if Max, if he expected to start, he said that is his expectation, and I think it's just what makes the most sense. We saw last year a variety of starting lineups had worked. Basically, the only one that didn't was the core four with Lamar Stevens. But outside of that, the Karis LeVert one I think had a net rating over 10. The Isaac Okoro lineup had been very good, but as much as Okoro has shown growth, I think that moving Max Strus in the starting lineup and giving that lineup more spacing is going to be great for them. And I think it's going to be great for him coming in off the bench, playing with just one big on the court and having more space for him to kind of showcase his game as a cutter.
So let's talk about it then. Let's talk about how important it was to add that spacing, because it was a clear expectation that this was going to happen for the Cavs, and you go out and get a couple of the best shooters on the open market and Max Strus and George Niang. How important is it going to be to layer those guys into what the group already has? Because it feels like that was kind of like the Nuggets last year, where you add guys like KCP, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, the wing defenders.
Mhm.
Now it feels like, hey, you've got the shooters to surround the star quartet that you've got.
Yeah, and the Nuggets are a team that the Cavs bring up quite frequently of the value of continuity and the difference that making adjustments to the supporting cast, just how big of a difference that can make. And I think, I think there's enough support with the Cavs this season to properly evaluate how good the core is. Because the Cavs, their bread and butter, their fastball was phenomenal last year when it came to the 3-man actions they ran, the split cuts. Basically, everything they did in the regular season seemed to work. And then when you go to the playoffs and the Knicks are saying, okay, well, we're going to sag off of Evan Mobley because we don't believe he's a viable scoring threat from the free throw line if you can't get to the basket. And we're going to kind of jam up that bread and butter. You don't have another pitch to go to in your arsenal. And I think this is going to make the Cavs more versatile. And I think it's going to make it harder to take away those kind of bread and butter plays because you look at it, the last 2 years, Max Strus was in the 4th percentile in terms of the openness of his 3-point attempts. This guy is one of the most tightly guarded players in the league. either that's going to change and his quality of looks are going to get a lot better, or you are really giving some real quality players for the Cavs some of the best opportunities that they've had. So I think that this is going to be an interesting year to see how JB Bickerstaff and the coaching staff evolve the offense to incorporate those shooters. And I know one of the things they've talked about is going back to a little more the motion offense that they ran 2 years ago with Larry Markkinen at the three, where they had him kind of playing off ball and doing some of those sets that we'll likely see with Max Strus. So it'll be interesting to see how the two styles kind of merge of the post Donovan Mitchell trade and the pre Donovan Mitchell offense that the Cavs ran.
Barring health, obviously, and I know Jared Allen's obviously dealing with stuff immediately. I think this team's going to kill the regular season,
Mhm.
just demolish it. And there are a lot of reasons to believe that this team could even have the best record in the NBA. Just given the layers that you can add to a regular season rotation, whether it's staggering Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, staggering Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. As you get the growth of those guys and you mix in the correct role players around them, if all four kind of go in the right direction, then I don't see any reason why this team can't really challenge for one of those top spots. I don't have them penciled in there yet, but I do think that there's absolutely a reason why this team can continue to grow. So where do Evan Mobley and Darius Garland in particular go from here? That's on my list of things because I think we know what Donovan Mitchell is mostly. I think we know what Jared Allen is mostly, and they're great, like an all
Mhm.
NBA guard and a great starting center. Uh,
Yeah.
what are Darius Garland and Evan Mobley going to be this year?
Well, first of all, you're a coward for not penciling the Cavs as number one. You look at kind of the guys that Boston, Milwaukee have. I think those teams are a tier above when you talk about like power rankings of how good those teams are. But they're shallow and they have guys that miss a lot of time. So I think with that in mind, given the Cavs continuity as well, not trying to integrate a major piece this late into the process, I think that should be the goal. Because if you're talking about the best path to postseason success, it's setting yourself up with a strong regular season. I mean, the Cavs went to four straight finals. I don't believe they were the one seed once. Like, we too often we kind of conflate what the regular season standings could be with power rankings. And I,
Right.
I think the Cavs have a chance to kill in the regular season. And a lot of it is going to hinge on Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. I think from Darius' standpoint, the fact that they were able to integrate Donovan Mitchell and he still was basically at that career high in points per game. I think it was 0 0.1 points lower while integrating Donovan Mitchell. I think that was a real feather in his cap, and probably if you exclude his first game of that season where Gary Trent Jr. poked his eye out, it probably
Mm.
was the same points per game. But I just want to see more assertiveness out of him. I think as much as they added 3-point shooting with the additions in free agency, Darius needs to, crank those numbers up. He needs to take more 3-point attempts. He needs to really be a threat. Anytime someone goes under, he needs to make those teams play. And that's one of the things he's acknowledged that he needs to do is just continue to be more assertive. And then from Evan Mobley's standpoint, I mean, all summer, all offseason, Carter and I were talking about how if we had our if we had our way, we would be forcing Evan Mobley to watch a lot of tape of Bam Adebayo.
Mm.
And turns out he's been watching tape of Bam Adebayo, and Max
Look at
Strus
that.
has been dialing up those clips of the two-man game that those two had. I think people often focus a lot on the three-point shot and whether or not that's going to progress. But if Mobley is that viable threat in the short roll, if he is a scoring threat from the free throw line, forcing defenses to come up, I think that would really help showcase his ability as a passer, because I do think that that's one of his strongest offensive traits. And if he can be that kind of central hub, that is going to be the key to postseason success. Because I think the biggest point of failure in the Cavs playoff offense was Evan Mobley. Because anytime you see an offense that revolves around a backcourt, it never works in the playoffs unless you have that front court playmaking, whether that's a Draymond Green, a LeBron James. I mean, Jokic, the way that he's able to
Pretty
create
good.
for guys, right? Like that frees up the guards to have those spot up opportunities and makes it harder for teams to blitz and trap and make life hell for a guy like Jamal Murray. And I think the Cavs just didn't have that. Evan Mobley wasn't ready to translate that aspect of his game to the regular season and playoffs. So that's going to be the number one focus for us because we know this team's going to be great in the regular season. It's how much growth has Evan Mobley shown to be that kind of front court playmaker to alleviate the stress from the guards.
The things that I would kind of identify outside of just the standard 3-point shot that I think it would be helpful if he had a nice pick and pop jumper and things like that. But more than anything, it's that short roll mid range jumper that if you are leaving somebody wide open in the middle of the floor and the only guy standing in his way is this big 7-footer at the rim who's attached to Jared Allen's hip, then you rather than attack that guy over and over again and get into contested shots, just go for the easy one and go for the floater, go for the mid-range jumper. There's a lot there, and then obviously the spraying the ball out along the floor to those other guys. If he can do that, I mean, he's already athletic enough that he can get around and eat like a half-hearted contest at the mid-range and short roll area. If he can like avoid those other contacts, then that's going to be a great thing for him. Um, I think this team is clearly third in the pecking order in the East. I think
Mhm.
just given the additions of Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday to the two top contenders, and given the falterings of the Heat and of the Sixers this year, I think it's a clear delineation between 1-2 and then 3 with the Cavs, and then 4 or 5 whatever with everybody else. How does this team match up with those groups in your estimation?
And I mean, that's a great question because they really changed their identity in a lot of ways, right? Like Milwaukee, so much of it was we are going to make your life hell at the point of attack, and we're going to have that backline support there. If that's not there, like if I saw a quote that Malik Beasley is supposed to be, the guy taking the toughest perimeter assignments, and I
All right.
just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. So with that, like it's going to be a totally different dynamic if you're assuming Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley, or even if it's Pat Connaughton. Like, that's going to create opportunities for Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. I still think Lillard and Giannis pick and roll. That's going to be the most deadly play in the NBA. I think. Uh, I've also seen too many times on the other side of these situations where yeah, you can talk about matchups and whatnot, but the best player wins the series, and I think Giannis is that guy, and that's why Milwaukee's my pick to make it out of the East. But you look at Boston, like I have a lot of respect for what Drew Holiday does, but I think in overall kind of net impact on the defensive end, it's probably a wash with him and Marcus Smart. I don't necessarily love the fact that they downsized where, your front court's going to be Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kristaps Porzingis in a conference where you have to deal with the size of a Joel Embiid or Giannis in the middle or, the big men that the Cavs have. Um, I I don't necessarily love what they're doing. I know they kind of over-indexed to the offensive end of the court, so we'll see how much Al Horford stands up. But it just seems like your Kristaps foul trouble away from like Lamar Stevens getting serious playoff minutes, or really banking on Al Horford. So I'm interested to see what that dynamic's like and how Kristaps Porzingis, how happy he is if he's not getting as many touches as he did in Washington. So I think they match up in interesting ways, but it's going to be a matter of what we see in the regular season. Like, okay, is Boston able to generate enough point of attack defense that it's hard to exploit their interior? Is Milwaukee's interior defense so good that it makes it hard to exploit their point of attack defense? Right, like it's opposite ends of the same coin. But I'm really interested to see what those matchups look like because Cavs were a great matchup against Boston last season. So I'm interested to see what happens there and if Drew Holiday gives them enough of an offensive boost to make up for some of what they've lost.
It is funny when I was doing this and kind of preparing for this, I thought about it in the opposite way, honestly, where a lot of what the Celtics are providing and then the spacing that they're going to have against a team in the Cavs that is going to try to defend from the inside out. And you've got some smaller guys in Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus on the perimeter that it could be difficult to guard in space or
Mhm.
guard against some of those other guys. So that's going to be fascinating. But I do think that this team matches up well with the Bucks. Like it's like you're going to run pick and roll with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell when Damian Lillard or Pat Connaughton are the guys that are having to guard on the perimeter, that's like, the Bucks are going to drop. Like that's going to be the case of the matter. So it's fascinating to think about those dynamics, but it's going to be this incredible round robin, I think, to try to figure out who is going to come out of there, and I'm very curious to see what happens there. All right, tell you what, give me a win prediction for this team. Where you staking your claim?
Well, I mean, I'm here to be an optimist. Like that is what it is. I'm going to say 56. I think it's going to be pretty flat in the Eastern Conference. Last year, the Cavs expected wins per cleaning glass was 55. They had really bad injury luck. Didn't finish some games. I think, like even if they had the same kind of level of injury luck, obviously knock on wood that there's no major ones, but they're just such a deeper team. And when you're projecting for internal growth, they're right back around that 55, 56 wins. I think that would be a major accomplishment. And I mean, as much as I'm interested in how they match up against Milwaukee and Boston, I'd rather only play one of them. Like, I'd much rather get the 1 seed, let them beat up on each other, and then, you had the real competition in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like that to me would be best case scenario, because I think if the Cavs end up in that 2-3 bracket and they have to play one of them in the second round, I don't know if I would pick the Cavs in that series. So I think, taking the regular season very seriously and trying to put yourself in the best position possible should probably be a priority for the Cavs.
I have them at 52 wins and the 3rd seed, but that is a great point in my mind about, hey, the best way to make it deep into the playoffs is have to play the least competition possible. And the Nuggets were able to take advantage of that this last year, where you get the 8th seed, you play the 4 seed in the second round, and then the 7th seed makes it in the conference finals, and the 8th seed makes it in the finals. You didn't game plan for that, but it just happened, and the bracket broke right for you at that point. So if you
control your own luck, right?
Exactly. You make the 1 seed, and you let the other teams have to pick and choose who gets to face you in the conference finals. That sounds way better. But I do think that 52 is where I have them immediately right now. But there's certainly an argument for them to go higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, health is going to be a big factor. I think the East is just really, really good this year. Like, I think it's deep. I don't think there's a lot of teams that got objectively worse. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that shakes out and, how much of an integration period there is. And I mean, you look at the first 10 games for the Cavs, I think every single one of those teams has postseason expectations or is aiming for that as a goal. So they're going to be thrown into the fire right away. And hopefully Jared Allen is healthy for that.
We will see what happens. Before we head out of here, give me one bold prediction on your way out.
Oh, I think that this is the year where, even if it's not consensus, I think this is going to be the year where there is an argument to be made that Darius Garland is the best player on the Cavs.
Ooh, that's an interesting one, because he's probably the guy that people think third most about, behind Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley.
Yep. Yeah, and I think when you look from an impact standpoint, like the on-off splits, Darius was that top guy again last season. I think no matter what, like the ultimate vision for this team is that Evan Mobley is their best player. But I think even if he is their best player and most impactful player, he's still probably going to be third in points per game. And Darius is going to be the floor general. He's going to be the guy that's in command of this offense. And I still think even if he can make that impact, that he's the best player this year, Donovan's still going to be the leading play finisher. He's still going to be the leading scorer. So it's going to be like one of those things where, all the nerds like myself are all going to be debating, well, Mobley's third in points per game, but he has the most impact. Well, Darius, he's the one that gets everybody going, and he's giving you 24 points per game and 10 assists. But Donovan's the leading scorer. Like, it's all going to be kind of a eye of the beholder type thing. But I think that this is the year where Darius makes a leap from, all-star snub to legitimate all-NBA consideration.
I love it. That should be that's the way to win a championship. If you're the Cavs, you have to make sure to get the most out of every piece, and he's a guy that you can get more out of for sure. So should be very fascinating to track. He is Justin Rowan, covering the Cavaliers for the Chase Down Pod with Carter Rodriguez. Guys, thank you so much, and Justin, good luck this year, and hopefully we can speak again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And, hopefully things get weird. Hopefully things get weird and then we can start doing finals previews. If not this year, 2025. We'll be there. Don't you worry.
Love it.